Sony A8G OLED TV is one of those products that could have been absolutely great if they had just made a few things differently. It makes you question why they made certain decisions. I mean, I know why. So in this review, we'll be talking about what those things are and how they affect the overall experience of having this TV. Stick around. Perfect. Hey guys, it's the Villaman here, home theater enthusiast and all-around tech lover, and on this channel we bring you unboxings, demos, comparisons, tips, as well as real-world reviews of the audio and video tech that entertains you so that you can find the best devices and get the most out of them. So if you're new here, then hit that subscribe button and come along for the ride. The A8G is, let's call it Sony's mid-range OLED TV for 2009. It replaces the A8F from 2008. It has a newer LG panel and some styling changes since last year, but it has the same acoustic surface technology and runs Android OS. So let's go over a few of the key specs for those of you who are unfamiliar with it. If you want more, you should check out my unboxing and overview video that's linked in the card up there. The TV has 2 USB and 4 HDMI ports, 2 of which are full bandwidth, which supports 4K HDR up to 60 frames per second, and the other 2, HDMI 1 and 4, only supports 4K HDR at up to 30 frames per second. So your console won't output an HDR signal if it's connected to either of those ports. HDMI 3 has the audio return channel. It also supports HDR10, Dolby Vision, and Hybrid Log Gamma HLG HDR formats. It has a pop-up in the top right hand corner to let you know exactly what kind of HDR signal the TV is getting and displaying. I like that more manufacturers are doing this because then you don't have to wonder if and what kind of HDR signal your TV is receiving. The design is modern Sony and looks really good. It's surrounded by dark metals and plastics and looks like a slab of screen when the TV is turned off. The stand is reversible, so the TV can either sit low on your entertainment center like it is right now, or higher so you can place a sound bar in front of it and not be obstructed. As you can see, I opted for the lower configuration. Let's move on to the operating system and one of the first parts of the TV which I feel that Sony intentionally held back on. The TV runs Android OS, so that means that it has all the apps that you could want available in the Google Play Store. More than just apps, when it comes to the usability of the TV, I feel that this is where Sony intentionally held back because it's not the updated experience that you see on the Sony X950G. No, the one that you'll find here is the older version that you'd see on their 2018 TVs, which is sluggish and not as user-friendly. It makes navigating things like the menu and doing simple things like accessing the settings more of a chore than it needs to be. Speaking of navigation, the remote. If you saw my review of the X950G LCD TV, then you may remember how excited I was that Sony had a new remote that was not only sleek but was capable of controlling your other devices too. But for some reason, you don't get that with this TV. Instead, you get this old remote which needs line of sight to communicate with the TV and even needs an included IR blaster cable to be plugged into the back of the TV to control your cable box. I honestly thought they retired this remote, but nope. Here it is. The only saving grace of this remote is that it has app shortcut buttons for Google Play and Netflix and is also voice enabled, so you can use the built-in microphone for searching and using the built-in Google Assistant. But I don't want this review to be just me complaining about things that I think Sony skimped out on, because this TV still has a lot going for it. The built-in acoustic surface sound technology, which uses actuators behind the screen, sounds really great for internal sound. Some of the best you'll hear from any TV. It doesn't sound as good as an external sound system, mind you, but it works well for those times when you want to watch TV but don't need surround sound. Dialogue is full and clear, and the sound has a surprising amount of low-end response for TV speakers, and there's something to be said about the sound appearing to come directly from the people speaking on screen. It's pretty cool. Then there's the picture. It's an OLED TV, so it's self-emissive, which means that each pixel on the screen produces its own light and is able to be controlled individually. So it doesn't need a backlight, and because of that, the TV is really thin, and the contrast it produces and the overall picture is absolutely great. Upscaling 1080p and lower res content is something that Sony does very well, and that's no exception with the A8G. Cable TV and other videos looked great on the TV, though not as good as native 4K material, but still very good. The TV comes with a bunch of picture modes, which varies from the accurate cinema and cinema home modes to brighter and more saturated ones like the vivid picture preset, among others. Watching movies on this TV was absolutely great, and I didn't notice any issues with motion processing like blur or judder or any panel uniformity issues. I did notice though that the TV wasn't as good at displaying highlight detail as other TVs I've tested. Now, since the OLED panel doesn't get as bright as an LCD TV, then the TV relies on tone mapping to display the HDR scenes with a higher peak brightness than the TV can support natively. And there were several occasions in both test scenes using the Spears and Munsell benchmark disc and test videos where the HDR tone mapping didn't maintain as much highlight detail as there should have been. You can actually see this in some of the scenes of the comparison with the mini LED TV from TCL that I did. That wasn't enough to be distracting, or probably not something I or anyone else would even notice without using a point of reference or a test image, but that's what I observed. The TV has a game mode which is, for lack of a better word, plain. Especially when compared to other 2019 TVs. It has input lag of about 30 milliseconds in game mode, so it's not bad by any means, but it's not especially good either. Especially since there are TVs out there with input lag in the low 20s and even teens. But that being said, 10 or so milliseconds isn't something that you'll actually notice in actual gameplay, but as far as response time goes, it's on the higher side of the 2019 TVs. I mentioned earlier that not all the HDMI ports are full bandwidth, so even if you connect, say, an Xbox One X to either HDMI port 1 or 4, then you won't be able to get an HDR signal from it, even if the game is in 4K HDR at 60 frames per second. SDR games work fine though, so that's what your console will default to if it's connected to either of those ports. The picture in game mode is again another saving grace. It's vibrant without being oversaturated and contrasty without crushing details in the shadows. Motion handling in game mode was as good as any other TV I've seen this year. There was no judder or motion artifacting on the edges of objects at any point. I've been thinking about how to really summarize my thoughts about this TV, and all that's coming to mind is that the TV has an absolutely great picture, one of the best viewing experiences out there, but then that picture is wrapped in a ball of okay. If this is your only experience with a Sony Android TV, then you might not see what the big deal about the OS is, but if you've used any other modern Sony TV, then you'll know exactly what the difference is. So, who is this TV for? Well, if you want an OLED TV with a great picture that's not an LG, and the A9G is out of your price range, and you're okay with the compromises that this TV makes, then you might want to take a closer look at it. I think both those TVs I mentioned do pretty much everything this one does and does it better, but they aren't for everyone. I've left links in the description if you want to check out the TV or even buy it for yourself. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about this TV. Is it one that you're looking at? Do you already have one? Sound off and let me know. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching, and share this video with a friend if you can. Until next time, this has been your friend and neighborhood Villaman saying, peace.